I am Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, but I also lead the Democratic Party, the party that Benedicto Kiwanuka took to power when he became the first Prime Minister of Uganda between 1961 and 1962. Your Excellency, I end by reiterating our call to the government of Uganda on behalf of the Democratic Party to get involved in finding the remains of Benedicto Kiwanuka. We would be happy, like the Congolese, even if we just received a tooth. We will at least be able to bury that tooth. The technology exists. There are now people in Argentina known as forensic archaeologists. We know roughly where he could have been buried, but we need the support of the government to get involved. It will be a glorious day, Your Excellency and my Lord the Chief Justice, when our country finally buries a man whose dream was to have a Ugandan state, whose foundation is truth and justice. He was a devout Catholic. He never missed Mass. He had Holy Communion every day. He was not a Sunday morning Christian like some of us. He was far-sighted as a politician and put Uganda first. He served ideals, not just his ambition. He was a loving husband, a loving father. He was a very loyal friend. One of his best friends was the late King Edward Mutesa II, who disagreed with him fundamentally on some political issues. But despite that, when King Edward Mutesa II was in trouble and was exiled, Benedicto Kiwanuka put aside political differences and fought for his return using all the resources at his disposal. Your Excellency and my Lord the Chief Justice, all over the world, governments are grappling with the issue of democratic governance, security, and economic transformation. I want to submit that an independent judiciary is critical in promoting democracy, peace, and economic development. We congratulate the judiciary for the strides made. Benedicto Kiwanuka would have been 100 years old this year had he lived, having been born on 8th of May 1922. Today we are celebrating the golden jubilee of his death, which we call a martyrdom. Indeed, agitators and campaigners in the Catholic Church are already making a move to persuade His Holiness the Pope to consider him for canonization alongside the revered Julius Nyerere, another devout Catholic leader and a hero of Africa. Today we are gathered to celebrate Benedicto Kiwanuka's legacy of sacrifice and struggle. These are two things that are familiar to you, Mr. President: sacrifice and struggle. Everything comes at a price. Sometimes you don't get everything you've paid for, but there's nothing you get without paying for it. Today, as we reflect, we ask ourselves, what is the rule of law? There are times when people think the law is an inconvenience. As a student, we read a book called A Man for All Seasons. whose main character is Sir Thomas More, who has been declared the patron saint of politicians. In one of the passages, one of the strongest people in the state, Mr. William Roper, was arguing with Thomas More about the limits of the law and how once in a while you must put the law aside to achieve objectives. So Mr. William Roper asks Sir Thomas More, so now, Mr. More, you give the devil the benefit of law? You know, sometimes we think bad people are not entitled to due process or the benefits of even a fair trial. Sir Thomas More answers, yes, and what would you do? Cut a great road through the law to run after the devil? And William Roper says, yes, I would cut down every law in England to do just that. And Sir Thomas More throws a punch. Oh, and when the last law was down and the devil turned around on you, where would you hide, Roper? The laws all being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast. Man's laws, not God's. And if you cut them down and you are just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? Yes, I would give the devil benefit of the law for my own safety's sake. Those who exercise the power of the state also stand to gain from the very laws that sometimes they seek to break. Because what would they then do if they no longer have the benefit of the law, like in this story of Mr. Roper? Because the laws that would defend him against the devil are already down. The ideal state is like a rope of 3 strands: the legislature, executive, and judiciary. Your Excellency and my Lord, the Chief Justice, our citizens are becoming cynical about the state, and worldwide there's a crisis of confidence about the state. We all have to take a whole of government approach, something myself and the learned Attorney General are determined to promote, so that we act together as Uganda, not the judiciary flying its own flag, the executive flying its own flag, and the legislature flying its own flag. Because indeed we are a rope of 3 strands. The comedians even make jokes now. They call the legislature legislators. They call the executive executives. They call the judiciary judiciaring. We have to take seriously the jokes that are made at our expense, because it is based on some perceptions. As we wait for the main menu in the reflections of our main speaker, we believe that the judiciary has changed a lot, and I believe that today, after the reflections of our main speaker, I know Your Excellency will make further commitments to strengthen our judiciary. We promise to support your agenda of the whole of government approach, of ensuring that we build a strong state. We reflect on how he lived, but we reflect more on how he died, because it says a lot about governance and human rights in our country. I thank you very much for listening to me.